Many of these damaged forests are left to recover on their own. What role does our forest play in climate change?
It's very important to understand the facts in as unbiased a way about the way forests not only respond to climate, but I think more importantly now, how forests affect climate. So I went back to the basic equations and built a model. What I discovered in the process is that the impact of forests on climate change is far more dramatic than I ever would have imagined. And as a result, I think the single most important thing we can do in the short term to battle global warming is to reduce the severity and extent of wildfires. We don't realize, for example, in the case of a wildfire in the forest, on average, you can, I'd say, have the equivalent of, and I published it in a report, the emissions from 48 cars per acre. So, and 1/4 of those would be from combustion and 3/4 from decay. Nobody really fully appreciated until I started working on this problem, the fact that the decay of the dead trees is more significant in terms of affecting climate than the fire itself.
Are you saying that the dead trees that rot after the fire contributes more greenhouse gases than the fire itself?
When you see a wildfire and you're smelling the smoke and your eyes are burning, that's air pollution. That really isn't affecting our climate. The invisible gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, that are in that smoke, that's what's affecting our climate. And those gases stay in the atmosphere for centuries while the air pollution dissipates in a short period of time. And for every 21,000 acres that burns, that's the equivalent of 1 million cars being added to the road, belching greenhouse gases, or it's the equivalent of saying for every 21,000 acres burned, you'd have to take 1 million cars off the road for a year and lock them in the garage to compensate for the fire.
So, what about all the dead trees that are a result of insect damage?
Another aspect of this is insects. For example, in the San Bernardino Mountains, we lost 50% of the forests in Southern California from insect infestation, the western pine beetle. We've lost 1 million acres of lodgepole pine in Colorado from the mountain pine beetle. Basically, when these forests are killed by insects, the same biomass that's sitting there in those dead trees decays in the same way fire-killed trees do and release CO2. So insect infestations are adding as much to the global warming as wildfires are. They're equivalent. It's just a simple matter of so much biomass, when it decays, releases so much CO2. Greenhouse gas emissions from wildfire and decay are very simple to understand. The amount of biological material, biomass, wood, in that forest dictates the emissions. It's no more complicated than that. The more trees you have, the greater the emissions when it burns.